can we beat Slay the Spire without using a single attack? Greetings, gentlemen. Make yourselves comfortable as we tackle the challenge of completing a full run of Slay the Spire without using a single attack. The rules are very simple. No using any, and I mean any, attack cards. Only skills and powers can be used. Now, you might be asking yourself, how is that even possible? First encounter is always a battle, and without any skill innately in our decks, it's simply not achievable. Well, unless you're the defect. However, it is possible, with a big caveat. You see, when you start up a new run, as long as you have gotten up to or past the first boss, you will get 4 choices, and all we need is one of those choices to include a card or even a relic that isn't an attack that deals damage in some way. Now, getting a damaging ability and somehow finding a way to do enough damage to tick 50 floors is another conversation entirely. Let's just say the word tick has been placed in that sentence very intentionally. Quick disclaimer, this is a completely random seed. No weird shenanigans happening here. Just a guy who has nearly 1,000 hours finding some fun challenges to play and upload as we wait for Slay the Spire 2. First things first, let's take a rare colorless card and oh Jesus, hail our Lord Sneko-sama, we got the bomb. Now we need to not mess this up. We check the map, find the safest route, and begin our ascent. First up is a couple of Laos. We defeat them with minimal injury, and with no rewards that we can collect, we move on to floor 2. We are presented with the option of upgrading cards, but with the loss of health and we all know 2 attacks were about to be upgraded, we pass on the offer. Floor 3 offers us something actually useful, a 25% heal, or removing a card. Both are good here, but removing strikes helps us cycle our bombs and defends quicker. So we end on the latter. Upon reaching inside the ooze, we take 3 damage but gain some sushi. This gives us gold every time we add a card to our deck. Floor 5, we have a combat against Jawworm, where we make our first misplay and take 5 unnecessary damage. This will not be the only time either. We take the gold and our first useful card reward, Metallicize. A great card in itself, and something that is sure to come in handy as we progress. Floor 6 has us fight our first elite, the Spires. Thankfully, we have a bomb in our opening hand, and they go down without much of a fight. Not only did we get a block potion, but Lizard Tail? This is exactly what we want on a challenge run such as this. An extra life. Brutality was the only real option here, and I didn't like the idea of losing HP, so we pass on the cards. Our first campsite gives us the option of upgrading the bomb or defend, but looking at my HP, I didn't want to risk giving up the tail so early in the run. For that reason, resting was the safest option. Floor 8 slimes go down easily, giving us both Metallicized Potion and a Combust. This was the power I was looking for, going hand in hand with the bomb. Now, all we need is a tungsten rod, and we will be set. Unlike earlier, this is not a foreshadow. Wait, is that a legendary chest? Ignore what I said earlier. It's going to be, right? It has to be. It's the molten egg. Our next campsite allows us to upgrade Combust. And now onto floor 11. We take 2 extra damage, gain an attack potion, and get offered 3 cards. Shockwave was my first thought, but where Vulnerable has 0 impact, I settled on Shrug It Off. Looking back, maybe Warcry was the smarter of the 3 choices for its ability to place things like Bomb on top of the deck if we don't have the energy, or Defends if we aren't getting attacked. Floor 12, we lose both HP and gold, as we don't get the bomb until the sneaky guy runs away. He does leave us a True Grit, however, which will further allow us to reduce our deck size mid-combat. Okay, our first difficult encounter, Laguvulin. Bomb and Combust in the opening hand helps a ton here, and upon waking, we don't hesitate to throw on our Metallicized Potion. A massive misplay. He was going down quickly anyway, and especially with our block potion, this will definitely come back to haunt us in the boss fight later. Regardless, a more bank for more gold, another Shrug It Off, and an Armaments gets picked up and upgraded as we get to the end of the act. But now it's time for slime. Slime time. I knew we weren't going to have too many issues due to the boss's nature versus bomb, so the biggest focus was to not misplay. We use block potion without hesitation to tackle his big attack, ornaments our bomb, get very lucky with 2 smaller slimes, and without much more effort, get our first boss victory. So far, so good. Outside of a couple of small mistakes, we've taken down Act 1, but now is where the challenge really starts to ramp up in difficulty. We pick up the attack potion, just in case we get Toy Orthopter, and get a very nice addition to our deck, Impervious. For our boss relic, we kindly say, "Not today, Snecko." Seeing the ability to remove more attack cards, I was drawn like a core to a car, and with that, Act 1 is complete. A quick check through the map to avoid as many elites and combats as we can, and we begin our ascent. Floor 18 has one of the most annoying enemies of the challenge, and it's here I make quite possibly one of the biggest mistakes in the entire run. I use Combust. For those that don't know, the Shell Parasite is an enemy that starts with 14 plated armor. This reapplies every turn, and in no world should I have ever used Combust here. We lose over 10% of our health from this card, and a total of 38 HP in this one combat alone. Act 2 is clearly where this challenge begins. Mistakes like this cannot happen. We skip the rewards, risk a curse for a legendary strength relic, and stop by our first shop. He didn't have much in the way of wares, so this Khajiit wasn't getting much of my coin.
Khajiit has wares, if you have coin.
Evolve, Blind, and a Smoke Potion were good purchases. Upgraded Blind affects all enemies, Smoke Potion dodges tricky combats, and Evolve has some potential if I play it correctly. This is another foreshadow. But less about that and more about floor 21. We have the Chosen, where Evolve is really going to shine. Every time we use a skill, a status card gets added to our deck. Evolve completely negates this debuff. Good job we bought it. They go down without much of a fight, and gift us a Ghostly Armor Plus as a fine reward. Snecko Sama falls next with no notable mentions. We rest up to not take any chances and remove another strike. Floor 25 gives us a huge win. Letter Opener, one of the strongest relics we could have asked for. Every 3 skills we play, 5 damage gets done to all enemies. A solid addition to our arsenal. We then grab a pair, upgrade a bomb, buy a skill potion, and walk away from a book. Now for the first elite of Act 2, the Gremlin Leader. Quite possibly the best elite we could have asked for. When his minions die, he prioritizes calling for new ones. We can use this to our advantage to take minimal damage, if we don't misplay. If we don't. Shrugging it off with 1 energy left is never a good idea when the bomb is in our draw pile. Thankfully, due to his minions consistently dying, we get away with taking no extra damage. And get a few nice rewards. Regal Pillow for extra HP on rest, and a Speed Potion when we need more block. Floor 31 has the Snake Plant, in my opinion an elite in itself. Big hitting attacks on multiple swings, plus block on attacks. We are going to take some damage here. Or, how about we don't? The final rest point allows us a Truger upgrade as we step into Boss 2, the Collector, who has 282 health. A long battle was to be had here. I decided to not shrug anything off on the first damage wave as I learnt my lesson. However, this attack coming up was really dangerous. With no real ways to defend it in hand, I looked to the skill potion, and by the gods of Snecko, we got a power through. This was a great find and allowed us to mitigate a large portion of the 41 incoming hit. A few defending turns go by before our next 35 hits, where we decide against defending for a bomb. And now with 18 health remaining, our time was limited. With Combust fully active, we had to finish this fast. Thankfully, our active bomb would save us from the next 38 hits, reducing it to just 18. Very manageable, but we had to play the next bomb here, so we couldn't mitigate it completely. To be on the safe side, we used our final Dex potion, saving us 2 HP. And after a couple more turns, we defeat the Collector with 14 health remaining. It was at this point I was starting to worry, but I was reassured by the blood oozing from the decapitated lizard we got earlier in the run. We picked up a draw potion and finally the Slaver's Collar, The final act was now upon us, and with the donuts being our final boss, I felt optimistic. So after checking the map for the safest route, we entered floor 35. The confidence I had started dwindling slightly with how much damage they dealt. Letter opener helped a ton, where I mitigated as much as I could. We finished with taking 29 damage and skipping the card reward. Next up we had the shapes, which were a welcome break, and even though we took an explosion to the face, we left unfazed, before picking up, what the fairy in a bottle? Whilst another life was certainly not an expected surprise, it was most definitely not unwelcome. 2 extra lives. Wow. Okay, we've got this. This is going to be easy now.
Why'd you just say that?
And with that newfound life, floor 37 had promises of rare relics for simply defeating a couple of orb guardians. It took all my might to resist, but nothing was going to jeopardize this run. Floor 38 had us get baited by another shrug it off, but to that I say nay. We would have drawn into a bomb again without energy, so a small proud moment where I learned a brief lesson was had. A few more turns go by and a flame barrier was added to the deck. Now, at this point we had 29 health, but with a campsite fast approaching, I went into the next encounter with little concern, which was a massive mistake. Playing challenges such as these and getting into a headspace of quick, confident plays leads to nothing but tragedy. Let's pause. Firstly, how much damage are we about to take here? We have 7 damage from the thorn and an explosion for 30 hit points, totaling 37 damage. Now, what 3 cards should we play? If you said Ghostly Armor, Shrug It Off, and Defend, or even 2 defends, you would be spot on. In fact, who in their right mind would choose to play an Evolve here? We simply need to end our turn after this one and move on with our life. I play Evolve. I cannot tell you exactly what was going through my mind, but I can tell you that I instantly regretted it, as shown by my feeble attempt to play a defend afterwards, even though I knew I had clearly used all of my energy. That fairy bottle, you know, the one we literally just received, was no more. I needed to slow down. Fast. Well, slow, you know what I mean. We replaced the fairy with a power and picked up a glorious Feel No Pain, licked our wounds, and got offered a duplication. Not much time was necessary for this one. In order to beat the bosses, another bomb, whilst not essential, would certainly be a helpful addition. We upgrade a flame barrier, consider our paths, gain a completely useless relic, and enter floor 44. This time, the shapes had no explosions to be worried about, and with very little difficulty, the fight was over. Another power potion added to the belt, and power through. Now, usually at this point I wouldn't risk drawing into wounds, but because we have Evolve, and I needed it to be worth something, it makes this card completely worth it. Realistically, it would have been great. Anyway, it's a great card. Even better when upgraded, which is what we did next. I knew the draw worms were going to be a challenge, especially with their strength factoring. We took a shot at a power in which Barricade was afforded to us. Perfect. In hindsight, it wasn't super necessary, but I'm still glad that we did it. 2 unknown events left. Now, this wasn't really a question. With a merchant coming up, we had better things to spend that gold on. Again, not sure what I was thinking here. Mercury Hourglass, 3 damage every turn. I mean, look, even if we take 10 to 15 turns into consideration, that's 30 damage. Not even a bomb. I should have taken the Dex Potion at the very least. Possibly Combust. Hell, even Lee's Waffle would have been better. That waffle, man. If you've had some close calls in a high ascension before, that waffle... that waffle tastes real good. The final campsite. Weak upgraded means weak for both donuts, and a good way to rid the artifacts, I guess. And now for floor 50. The big, bad bosses. Great, 3 damage to them both. Anyway, without hesitation, the power potion was drunk, and having Barricade, whilst I doubted we would receive enough block to make that work, was still nice to have active in the background. A clear and concise turn 1 and 2, bombs and defenses on both. Turn 3 had us enable our powers before starting up another bomb cycle. It was here where I started realizing we aren't going to have enough block to sustain this damage. The thing we have to think about here is what each boss does. Deca, the front donut, gives block or damage plus statuses. Donu, on the other hand, does damage or gives them both strength. And with them both being at +6 already, time was not on our side. 12 damage gets through our block, but enough about that. Evolve has earned its spot, god damn! Talk about giving us options here, but let's take note. We have 2 bombs currently active, meaning 100 damage will be applied, shield pending. 38 damage was incoming, but while I sat there doing the maths, it was pretty clear. We set up our final 2 turns of defense, and with Lizard Tail still intact, the final boss of the Spire was defeated. I hope this challenge was as fun to watch as it was to make. A huge shout out to my little brother for giving me this idea. He also makes challenge videos and will be linked below. If you want to see a behind the scenes with me literally spending hours attempting to get a random damaging skill for the Silent, or any future challenges coming up for Slay the Spire and Monster Train, then consider subscribing to join along. Thanks for watching, and as always, stay hydrated.